Let me just start the recording here. And Tom, do you want to do the introductions?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sephardic World. We bring you bi-weekly meetings about Sephardic history and genealogy. As always, we thank our patrons who are here with us and our viewers on YouTube, in case David manages to set YouTube up. Uh, this week, our speaker is David Mendoza, and he will give a review of the past year and maybe also tell something about plans for the next year. Welcome all, David.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Sorry, I will also just let people in before we begin. Great. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our last meeting of 2023. We thought to have a review of the year because it's been quite a busy, indeed momentous year for us, and we also thought to have a look ahead to next year, which is likely to be equally busy. So let us start with some good news, and this is fresh off the presses on Monday. The consultation about setting up a conservation area around Bevis Marks synagogue in London has reached its conclusion, and they have decided to create the maximum size conservation area, which is what we had asked for. If I can remind people, a couple of years ago, developers had wanted to put up some high rises around the synagogue, which would probably have damaged the foundations of the building, would certainly have blocked the sunlight, and frankly would have blighted a very historic area of London. And so when the idea of establishing a conservation area was put forward, the developers said fine, but then they wanted to cut holes in the conservation area like a Swiss cheese, and in these holes, of course, they would still be putting their high rises. And we had a meeting at the synagogue where they had a public consultation, and I had quite a long time speaking with them, and I think they'd understood the value and importance, historic importance of the synagogue, but they hadn't really understood how this area was the center of Jewish settlement in England, and because the Jews obviously were the first religious and ethnic minority, it has some wider implications for the future evolution of the country, and of course not just Sephardim but also Ashkenazim. And the Ashkenazi Great Synagogue was a few doors down from Bevis Marks. It got destroyed by an enemy bomb during the Second World War. And to add insult to injury, this was one of the places they had wanted to put up a skyscraper. So we had obviously asked our supporters if they could contact the City of London as part of their consultation, those people who had connections with the synagogue. And in issuing their decision, the committee actually mentioned that this is the biggest response they've ever received for an inquiry of this type. So obviously, many thanks to everyone who participated. It should mean that Bevis Marks Synagogue is now safe from developers. I've actually suggested that they try to get World Heritage status, because I think the site is of that importance, and of course it would also help tourism as we're going forward. So another thing, obviously, which has been on our minds for the last few years is the Portuguese nationality law. As I think everybody knows, functionally the law is being closed, although technically not. And they keep sort of fiddling with it, and also there is a general review of the Portuguese nationality law, which includes the Sephardic concession. And so we thought we should write to them with respect to the Sephardic element. And obviously, thank you to Bernard for editing the letter. And essentially, what we were saying is that we hope in some way they can reactivate the Sephardic concession, albeit probably compliant with genealogical standards and on a smaller scale. Portugal's actually called an election, so we don't expect anything much to happen for months and months. So for us, the high point of the year was the publication of the A Nação Hebraica website. To remind everybody, this is a site based on the Transkribus artificial intelligence software. This is a project led by David Silveira and initiated by David Silveira. And essentially what goes on is the artificial intelligence is trained to identify shapes. So we might have a line of manuscript text, and then next to it we've manually transcribed what we think is written there, and over time the AI learns to identify shapes of letters and words, and then can automatically transcribe the data. As far as we're aware, this is the only, for want of a better word, amateur project using Transkribus, which has reached this stage. That's to say, most of these projects are from universities, from large archives and libraries, and we've now reached the point where the earliest two books of annual accounts from Bevis Marks from the London congregation have been published, and these are from the 1670s. And I mean, obviously, we assume that everybody can see the value of this as the project evolves. The hope is that the entirety of the manuscript archives will become accessible and searchable by anybody, even if you are not in London, if you don't speak Portuguese and you can't read the manuscript. So this is a huge step forward within Sephardic genealogy, and we would suggest that it is actually a landmark event in Jewish genealogy too. I can't think of when there was a project of equal significance. Unfortunately, this view was not shared by the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies, who held their conference this year in London, and which a number of us attended. And they decided not to platform what I suspect is probably the single most important talk ever offered to them. And so, of course, a number of our researchers stayed away. But if you look at the photograph on the bottom left, this is an informal meeting a group of us had one evening at the conference after all the talks and other events had finished. And if you look on the far side of the table with sort of crossed arms and dark beard, you can see Michael Was, next to him Ton, then me, then with red hair, Jarrett Ross. And the four of us are the sort of founders of the Sephardic Diaspora group on Facebook, which is sort of the start of this whole renaissance, I would say, in Sephardic genealogy. And this is actually the first time that I ever physically met Michael and Jarrett. We've had this group online for a decade, but this is the first time I've met them. And of course, a lot of other people here who I just recognize as names on emails or faces at a meeting such as this. And it was a really energetic and enthusiastic and really positive meeting. It was really great fun. And I think the highlight of perhaps what was quite a lackluster conference, it wasn't particularly well attended. I think certainly those on the British side felt that they had been somewhat steamrollered by the Americans at the IHAGS. So, for example, that there were you didn't really get a feel of London within the conference, and perhaps the London sort of libraries and archives and so could have been there, but were not. I mean, obviously, on the other hand, the IHAGS has been organizing these conferences now for more than 4 decades, and they have the budget. They're paying the bills and probably bringing most of the attendees. But I think from a Sephardic side, it was unfortunate, as I said, that they couldn't recognize which were the important talks, and perhaps which talks or which talk should not have been put on the schedule. And also, of course, we had this issue of double and indeed triple booking of the 20 Sephardic themed talks. 11 were double booked or triple booked. But I think from a Sephardic side, it was a very valuable event. If you look at the photograph on the bottom right, going from right to left, we had Michael Wass, Randy Schoenberg, myself, and Ton Thielen speaking. And this is a panel discussing claims of Sephardic settlement in Eastern Europe. And I think this is a claim that has very frequently been made at these conferences. And as we discussed in the panel, there really isn't any evidence to support these claims. You know, one of the problems I think we've had in terms of trying to integrate Sephardic genealogy into this organization is that for so long that they have had these claims that perhaps are not supported by evidence. So Sephardim in Eastern Europe, that very religious conquistadors were actually sort of secretly Jews, crypto-Jews, or that a whole slew of surnames from Spain and Portugal were Jewish, and so on. And this is what we were fighting against. And one of the things we decided at this meeting was that after the conference, we would get in touch with the IHAGS, and indeed that's something that we did. And what our argument was, we decided not to discuss things that we thought weren't right at the conference, not least because they know that. I suspect they lost quite a lot of money. But what we were trying to focus on is that future talks on Sephardic genealogy should be to the same standard, at least, of Ashkenazi genealogy. And what we said to them is they have an absolutely excellent code of conduct, and by all means, go and read it yourself on their website. And essentially, you know, what it says is that, you know, you must do your genealogy to acceptable standards. You must show your sources and don't do harm. So what we said to the IHAGS board, who are the people in charge, there's a board, and then there is a program committee who are appointed by the board, and it's the program committee who then choose speakers for their events. Not speakers, but proposed talks. And what we said to the board is, can you please maintain your standards? And we understand, of course, that you're basically an Ashkenazi group, so you're experts on Ashkenazi genealogy. We can't expect you to know the nuances of Sephardic genealogy, and so why don't you put somebody with some Sephardic knowledge onto the program committee, or if that's not feasible, then at least have the program committee run proposed talks on Sephardic subjects past somebody who has Sephardic knowledge. And we thought this was reasonable and would be agreeable to them. Unfortunately, not, and we got a rather strange response. They said that their code of conduct was essentially for other people, not for them, and certainly not for them in running their affairs. And they also said that it would be operationally impossible to do what we had asked, which of course we think is not the case, and also that it would be tantamount to having academic peer review, which of course is not, because if they have sort of 6 Ashkenazi experts, then swapping one of those for a Sephardic one should really make little difference. So we were thinking, and then they said, this is our final decision, so take it or leave it, lump it or like it. And so we were thinking about how we should respond to them. And then it was the high holidays and then Sukkot, and we didn't think it was really a good idea to get into what could be a dispute during those times. And then, of course, now all the horrors in Israel and Gaza. But notwithstanding what they've said, they've actually, for their program committee for the forthcoming Philadelphia conference, they have got somebody with a Sephardic background on the program committee. So what we're hoping is that they have actually taken on board what we've said, even if their pride demands that they don't acknowledge us. But of course, it could just be sort of tokenistic or whatever. So what Ton and I have decided, for what it's worth, is as a genealogical society, unless we see a change in the situation, we would not be attending their forthcoming conference. That being said, there's no reason for others not to attend. But also there's a secondary concern that the IAJGS essentially serves a particular demographic within Jewish genealogy. And this might be described as retirees who can afford to spend a week in a 5-star conference hotel. And obviously that excludes a lot of people, and especially it excludes younger people. And one of the things that we were discussing at the meeting at the conference is whether we ourselves should have our own event. And the original thought was we could do it in Marrakesh in Morocco, because it's remarkably cheap, and also because it's on a lot of people's bucket list. But when we sort of polled our supporters, the heavy preference was for Lisbon, and then of course the horrible earthquake happened in Morocco and Marrakesh. So I spent about a week or so researching how and where we would hold a symposium in Lisbon. And of course, this could be under the auspices, under the umbrella of the IAJGS or Jewish Gen or somebody else. We don't want to get into to fights with people. But what I have concluded, having obviously spoken with Ton and others, is that if the IAJGS, which has decades of experience, a budget, local partners, and so forth, if they manage to screw up on a conference, then it's quite arrogant to just assume that remotely we can set one up for ourselves. Because the other thing we want to do is we want to make sure it's fun. I think fun was a missing element from the London conference, and so what we've concluded is it probably needs somebody, one of us, to be in Lisbon for about a week, going around all the potential venues and places to stay, because we also want to look at halls of residence, because that's a cheap option for many people, and obviously to find kosher food and think about security and so forth. Realistically, with everything else that's going on, we don't think we can do that next year. So we're putting that back a year, should it happen, because of course it might be also we know that there are discussions within the IAJGS to completely change the structure. Maybe nothing will happen there, but we shall see. So that's something we've decided to put for the moment onto the back burner. So this year we've had 26 meetings, 27 including this one, which is less than last year. But again, we have so much going on below the surface that we really just had to make cuts somewhere. And yesterday I had a look online because I was just curious to see subscriber numbers. And amazingly, we have more subscribers than JewishGen and the IAJGS combined. That being said, of course, we are very amateur, as regular viewers will be aware, and probably if we could find somebody who understood editing and could make sort of shorts and put things on Instagram and TikTok and so on, we would hopefully reach a larger demographic. But for essentially a shoestring operation, I think we are quite pleased. So we're not going to sort of review every single meeting that we've had, and apologies if you're somebody who's spoken this year and we don't mention you. I mean, all the talks obviously are of equal value. We just wanted to sort of highlight some of the categories, and genetic genealogy is perennially popular. We had Wim Pennings speak about Y-DNA. This is the inherited DNA from father to son. Raquel Levy-Toledano gave an incredibly useful talk on how to actually use DNA in your genealogy. If you haven't seen it, it's on the YouTube website. We think that perhaps we need to have more of these practical talks, and perhaps we can get somebody from some of the commercial companies, essentially to talk about what you do after having a DNA test. Adam Brown has done more for Jewish genetic genealogy than everybody else, and he spoke on DNA and Jewish genealogy. And I think this is the first time we had a speaker who had to move during the meeting to get a better signal. So in the last 2 years, our focus was very heavily on Western Europe, which obviously is important, but we wanted to cover other parts of the world. So we were lucky to have Adrienne Genet talk about New Orleans, Simon Krendler about Barbados, and Stephen Delgado Porter returned to talk about Jamaica. And Jamaica is another subject that is perennially interesting. We were looking up what was our most successful talk in terms of hours watched this year, and actually it was our interview last year with Ainsley Cohen Henriquez from Kingston, Jamaica, and that has been watched this year a total of 2,500 hours. Going forward into next year, we hope to cover those Caribbean islands we haven't mentioned yet, St. Thomas, and also sort of other American communities we haven't yet covered. So Philadelphia, Charleston, Savannah, and so on. And if anyone has any ideas for speakers there, please let us know. So talking about families is always interesting. We had Dr. Jeff Mulcair, who's really the founding father of Sephardic genealogy, talk about his family. Nathaniel Farouz had to get up at some godforsaken hour because he's in Asia to talk about the Almos Ninos. And Julian Land in Australia, who's a real trooper, not for the first time, he had to get up in the middle of the night to talk to us about the Baruch Luzadas, who are obviously one of the most interesting families in the Western Sephardic diaspora. And if you have a family that you studied carefully and you want to present, then again, please let us know. We also had talks looking east especially the territory of the former Ottoman Empire. Joseph Benetov spoke about Bulgaria. He doesn't have his talks recorded, but by the way, he does run Jewish tours of the Balkans if anyone is interested. And we met him at the conference in London, as we did Felicia Waldman, who is an expert on Romania and hopefully now becoming part of our inner group. Jacob Rosen, who of course is part of our inner group, discussed using Facebook for researching the Jews of Egypt. And I think going forward also to have more technical talks like that is something that we want to schedule. And we also, unusually for a Jewish Genealogical Society, we have academics come to speak to us. And I credit Tom with this, because his reputation as expert on the Amsterdam and other Western Sephardic archives has given us a credibility that genealogical groups don't usually have. So we had Mark Ponti, Ron Hasner came and spoke to us about torture and Spanish Inquisition, and David Sklar, who is curating at the moment exhibition on Maimonides, came to talk to us. We don't normally have subjects before 1492, but Maimonides is such a sort of towering figure in Sephardic history, it seemed worthwhile. Looking ahead, we are trying to find experts on the Portuguese National Archives, Spanish National Archives, the Ottoman Archives, Hamburg, and forgive me, there is another which escapes me at this moment. So sadly, this year we lost Kevin. Kevin Martin will be known to a lot of people here, and Kevin and I used to meet at the British Library, and we were going to meet about a month before he died. But he didn't feel well, and then 2 weeks later, I wasn't feeling well, and then of course he died. But thankfully, his family understood or understand the value of his work, and especially thanks to Gina Marks. They offered us his digital archive, which is over 95,000 files. I mean, God bless him, but Kevin wasn't the world's best organized person, or at least his documents weren't the best organized. It's going to take us quite a while to sort through them, because obviously we have to check that there aren't family files there or private correspondence. If as we want to do, we want to put documents into the public domain, and also, of course, we have to check for copyrights and so on. And a second archive that we obtained is, or partial archive, is Julian Kepner's research on the De Sola family. This was in the Jewish Genealogical Society of Great Britain library. That library has to move because they are hosted in the Jewish Museum, which is closing. And the librarian Lydia, who's very methodical, she decided that most of the archive wasn't really core to what the JGSGB wanted. So she took out the most important documents and offered us the remainder. And I went along with a big backpack and sort of a couple of bags, and almost broke my back bringing this stuff home. It's like a mule. And Tom was visiting a few weeks later, so I sort of threw everything in front of him. And essentially there's 9 large ring folders, some of which, there's nothing digital, some of which is unique and valuable, and in time we need to scan. The problem, of course, being is that we just don't currently have the resources or indeed a place to host it. And this is one of the things we need to think about, especially as we go into 2024, how we organize all of our data. And so, for example, we have our Sephardic Genealogical Society, which has, gosh, I don't know, probably about 250 hours of recording. We have my website, which sephardicgenealogy.com, which, to be honest, I haven't properly maintained. It's a bit of a mind dump, but there's a hell of a lot of useful material there. There is a lot of conversations and discussions in Facebook groups, which can probably be downloaded and indexed. And there's a lot of other experts and sites. I put Alain Fahisle Fleur de Lorient here, but I think in our wider group, we probably have much more information than we think we do. Now, of course, nobody has an obligation to hand over what they have, but I've certainly had a few sort of health issues recently, and have been sort of thinking, as with Kevin's family, you know, I don't want all my research to be lost should something happen. And so we've been having a look at what other people are doing within the world of Jewish genealogy. And there is perhaps a trend that a lot of data is being consolidated onto JewishGen with the excellent Avraham Grohl that Ton and I interviewed a few weeks ago. And Avraham has really sort of turned around JewishGen in terms of its attitudes towards Sephardim. I think initially it could have been described as hostile. That's why Dr. Malka set up his own Sephardic Gen website. But with Avraham, we've seen so 180-degree turn, as of course with Avatenu, which is now at the absolute cutting edge of Sephardic genetic research, to the point where Dr. Malka's databases are now hosted by JewishGen, and we can only hope, of course, that what's happened with the IAJGS. But the group that is most interesting to us is this one, GRI Poland, and I think that they offer a model for us in terms of data management, and I will sort of close this by discussing them a little bit. And they're a charity registered in the United States, so their sort of simple accounts are in the public domain. And I would invite you first of all to look at row number 6, and you will see this is an organization that has 175 volunteers, so many hands. And then if you look at the budgets that they're working with, say line 12, their total revenue approaches $500,000. And if you go down to the bottom, line 22, you can see they've got about $1 million in the bank, which, to be honest, is probably about $1 million more than we have. But they have a project called NextGen, and this is their new website, which I think is stunningly beautiful and absolutely brilliantly conceived. For the first thing to say is they have a mission statement and objectives, which is not to say we don't, but the clarity I think that they have is very, very useful. And then what they're doing here, this is the Town Explorer page. So they have a section for each town. There is a researcher who is sort of allocated to each town, and you can see also it is mapped, and each town is also sort of color coded. So once you know the system, you can immediately see what data is available for that town. This is their Project Explorer. So these are where people are working on data from different towns. If you can see the third one along, you can see the green line at the bottom that they are fundraising for people interested in, I think the town is pronounced Łódź, but people who are interested in that particular area. Which seems to be a degree of sophistication to which we could ourselves aspire. And again, they've just thought of absolutely everything. So this is the registration that you have to register with their site to actually see the content, so they know everybody who's visiting. But also, when you register, they ask all your skills. You know, whether you speak languages or you know Adobe Photoshop or whatever, presumably so that they can come back. And it's kind of obvious, but at the same time, brilliant. And everything has been done, I think, just terribly elegantly. And this is their search page. And I did a search on my Ashkenazi great grandmother who left Poland and came to London, Silverman, and you know, you can see the filters and things, and how clear everything is done. And you can see how, with what we're doing, where we have just so much data that we can perhaps take this sort of approach. I mean, necessarily we'll kind of modify it for our own goals, but this seems a very, very good way in which data can be properly organized. I mean, I think, and we're going to be talking with GRI Poland over the next few weeks. But I think what's going on is their old database was essentially a collection of lists, which they're now trying to turn, or not trying to, which they are now turning into a relational database, and they're doing it with extreme elegance. I mean, I'm not a web developer, but my first website was literally when you still had to write the HTML by hand, and I can recognize beauty and skill when I see it. So this is also from the accounts in 4A. It tells us that they've got about 6 million records, that they've added 50, almost 60,000. I think this is 2022 at the cost of $100,000. It says a revenue of $185,000. I'm not quite sure how that works. It might be what we were seeing before, that people can pay for specific towns to be for the data to be collected. And if we look at 4B at the bottom, their website and database seems here to have cost them about $600,000, dollars, which is an absolute ransom, which is very, very expensive, but very, very beautiful. And as I say, we want to talk to them to understand better what they have done, and to see whether they can help us going forward. Now, of course, the problem is we operate on a shoestring budget, but I think they present us with a goal going forwards. So the last and most important project we are not going to tell you about. Some people here, of course, know about it. We can say that we are talking with a world-class institution that everybody has probably heard of, and that Ton and I have met them recently. We don't expect things to move very quickly if they do develop, but if we can have a relationship going forward with these institutions, we can absolutely sort of catapult ourselves forward into the future. So I'm sorry, I sort of raced through everything. So hopefully, certainly for those who have supported us, and please God will continue to support us, they will conclude that we've had quite a useful year. I would say that we're now at the point where we need to start actually trying to develop some real infrastructure and also, frankly, try and find money so that, you know, because Ton and I obviously, this is very much at the moment a labor of love. It doesn't pay the bills, and we need to find a way that we can properly build this up. And I mean, one possibility is also in tandem to this to help develop a Mizrahi genealogical presence, because frankly there's many more philanthropists that would help Mizrahi researchers than ourselves. But that is a very rapid race through where we are and what we have done. I think we can end this year feeling quite pleased with ourselves, but there's still an enormous amount still to be done. So, Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
No, not at this moment.
Oh, dear.
So, Bernard Miller would like to give an update on developments in the last 3 to 4 days about Portuguese citizenship and the
Okay, fine, for sure. Bernard, please.
Bernard?
Yeah, can you hear me? So I'm in Denmark. I've got no idea what the Wi-Fi and the broadband here are like for this meeting. So nod if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, in the last 3 or 4 days, there's been a ruling from the Portuguese, I think it was the Supreme Court, which basically has declared the changes made to the immigration law to be illegal in one case. But the reasons that they've given would apply to all cases. And very briefly, there were, I think, 6 people applying for Portuguese citizenship among the people taken hostage in Israel. 3 of them, I think, were killed in an Israeli attack that never got reported. 3 of them are still believed to be held hostage, and Portugal, like Germany, and I have to congratulate both, immediately took action when they got news of this to grant citizenship to the people who were already in the application programs, so that they would be counted as foreign citizens and therefore be eligible for release as foreign citizens. This had to go to the Portuguese, I think it was the Supreme Court, because the changes to the immigration law required such things as inherited property ownership, lifetime relationship with Portugal, and so on. And the court declared that those changes were actually illegal because they were not carried out by the Portuguese government. They were carried out by a ministerial decision and action which had no validity in law, but they only did it for the one case. It does, however, open the way to appeals by other people. And in the vacuum surrounding the collapse of the Portuguese government, the forthcoming elections, there may be a possibility of putting forward some kind of positive proposal for a revised new program for Portuguese citizenship, but also encouraging other people who are in the system or who applied after it changed in September 2022 to apply and appeal on the grounds that those changes have already been declared illegal by the courts, which would mean, if that were upheld, that the previous rules up to 2020, up to September 2022, would still be in force. The other thing is that it now looks as if the proposal to end the law at the end of 2023 is now scrapped with the fall of the government, and it will continue till at least the end of 2024. So I just thought I would throw those in for people who are interested in that program. I'd like to come back later, if I may, and offer a couple of talks.
Thank you. Can I just ask, because they kept tinkering with the rules, is everything now gone back to how it was at the beginning, or is there a particular cut-off point? Do you know?
No, nothing has gone back to anything except in the individual case. Okay. Where when the Portuguese government wanted to grant citizenship, it was challenged on the basis that the law had changed. Probably the people who mounted the challenge are now regretting it. And the court then looked at the changes that had been made, supposedly starting in September 2022, and said they were illegal because a change to immigration law has to go to the full Portuguese Parliament and cannot be made on a ministerial or committee decision. So they've declared that one case illegal on those grounds, but clearly anybody else applying and using that decision of the court would be able to invoke the same grounds for declaring the change in the law as it was, well, as we believed it was, to have been illegal because it doesn't comply with Portuguese law. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but Bernard is asking if there's any sort of written summary. I mean, we should of course say that we're not lawyers or legally qualified. Bruce is asking if there's anywhere a write-up of the court decision. Ideally.
I've seen something in Portuguese. I will find it. Shall I send it to you, David, for the group, and I can send it to Bruce as well individually? I'm sort of busy, but I will certainly try to do it in the next 2 days.
If you can send it to the group, and then we'll put it in the next sort of email we send out so everyone can see it.
Sure. With great pleasure, as they say.
Thank you. Amy, you have your hand up.
Oh yes, I do. I thank you for the wonderful presentation. I'm very happy to join for the first time as a paid up person. I would like to get more involved and help with share my skills next year.
Right.
I think I wrote in the chats I have Adobe Photoshop at home. I'm also a solicitor. I'm studying for the bar exam next year. Join the bar as a barrister. My family, Julian might have mentioned that there are 5 generations of London barristers in the Barrack-Lusada family. So we've got a long tradition, and that's what inspires me. And also, we had a chairman of the Tate Gallery, so I'm also running a gallery. So I'm very excited. I'm really energized by my, Barrack-Lusada heritage, but also from my mother's side, who is political. Anyway, I know a Portuguese solicitor in Riyadh. I lived in Saudi Arabia 2 years, worked very closely with him. And funnily enough, his father was the politician who introduced the law.
Okay.
The right of return law for Portuguese Sephardim. So I have a very good contact, which could help with the legal side and help understand that judgment. So I can try and reach out to him. I haven't spoken to him since I lived in Riyadh. We left there 2019, but we're on LinkedIn together. We're still great mates. And so I'd like to offer my support and help. And also just in the email, this is just a small thing, but can you put the Australian time as well? Because I like Julian, who's my dad, Julian Matt. That's my daddy. We struggle to get up. And also then we get confused because of the time difference, because now it's 6 a.m. because we're in summer.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's as early as 4 a.m. I swear. Sometimes it's as early as 4 a.m. So just a little thing, but there are a very small minority of Australians in the group. And if you can just please remember us, we'd be very grateful.
Yeah, it's difficult for us in terms of setting a time, because what we've tried to do is we've tried to set a time where people in Israel are still, it's not too late, and for people in California, it's
Yeah, I'm not
it's
complaining
not
about
too
the
early. So
time.
it's-
I'm not asking for a change of time.
Yeah.
I'm just asking if you can put it in the email just to save me having to look it up, and I'm doubting myself. I never know if I've missed it or just,
should we
I know
do
it,
Sydney time?
yeah, Sydney time would be perfect because I live in Canberra, that's the capital city,
Yeah, yeah.
and we're the same time as Sydney always. So thank you.
Okay, no, that's brilliant. I mean, obviously, we need lots and lots of skills. I would suggest that some of the skills we really need at the moment are fundraising, and especially web development, working on the WordPress platform. I for some reason I woke up at 2 a.m. this morning and I've spent all day analyzing the JRI Poland website. Because I think it is very, very beautiful. I mean, I've got my own website, which is just some mind dump. I mean, there's a lot of useful stuff there, but not particularly good in researching. And also, we're looking particularly for video editors, so that we can recycle some of what we have hour and a half meetings. And if we want to put stuff onto sort of TikTok and Instagram and so on, we need shorter stuff. But no,
Yes.
that's really kind. So thank you
And
very much.
I could mention just regarding websites, I'm looking at one for my own purposes, and WordPress is not notoriously very hard to use, and there are other free ones. I did a design thing with Craft ACT for artists who are building their own website, and there is an easier one. So, but it could be too late to switch. But Julian's website, I love his website, but to me, it's not well presented. One of the things I'll look at is how I can help Julian with his website too.
I mean, WordPress is now up to, I think, 65% market share, and so that means that many more plugins and things are created for that, whereas some of the other platforms, Joomla and so on, are in decline. I mean, I have in the past built a e-commerce store on WordPress, but it does seem to be the way to go, even if it is complex. It's just because we can get more plugins. Bruce is saying MediaWiki is a great platform. To be honest, I've never heard of it. I'll have to check it out. But, yeah.
Richard Webb says that the Jewish Genealogical Society of Great Britain has relocated its library to Westminster Synagogue at Kenthouse in
That's actually my mother's old synagogue. That's where the Czech scrolls are, the Torah scrolls that were brought out of Czechoslovakia. For people who might have visited London, it's very close to Harrods and Harvey Nichols. It's just opposite an army barracks. The embassy is in the street.
And Richard says that it will be open for use by members in coming January, and for public users in March 2024.
Yeah.
Both by appointment only. So they don't have fixed hours.
It's a beautiful building. It was the Duke of Kent's house, who I think was the brother of one of the kings. I'm sorry, I can't quite remember which one, but it is a beautiful building anyway. So.
And I hope they can stay there for a number of years, because they have been relocating for a number of times now.
Well, they've been it's been bad luck. The Society of Genealogists moved, which was unexpected, and now of course the Jewish Museum closed, which was unexpected. So yeah. Okay, it's William IV. Was William IV Duke of Kent? Father of Queen Victoria? No, Queen Victoria's father never became king.
No.
William IV was uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway.
So he was the brother of William IV and father of Queen Victoria. He was the one the one brother who didn't become king. He died before.
Okay, so he'd be the brother of William IV.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No. Got it. Okay. Thank you. And so then, presumably after he died, that's why the family just relocated down the road to Kensington Palace, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. No. Learned something. Is there anything else in the chat? I'm afraid it was a bit of a self-congratulatory meeting today, but why not if it's our last of the year?
Not really. It's maybe there are questions on YouTube.
Oh, good point. But I would like to so something that we didn't think about is we should have made a sort of Sephardic genealogy hero and zero for 2023. So I'm just looking at
Sorry, I do have one more.
yeah, by all means.
I already went to Morocco and it's not cheap, especially Marrakesh. That's the most
Really?
expensive town in Morocco. Yeah, most expensive town. But what about, seeing as we're not doing it for another 2 years, what about Tunisia?
Well, let's see how the politics of the Middle East work out. The thing about Morocco is Morocco is very sort of Sephardic well, I suppose actually Tunis was.
Yeah, we have all our families in Tunisia.
Yeah. No, it's a thought. I've never been there.
Cheaper.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think maybe though that the advantage of being somewhere like Portugal is that if everything, something goes wrong, Europe is much more familiar than North Africa.
Yeah, that's true.
Bernard, speak your mind.
Yeah, it was, first of all, it's the comment about the Jewish gen relationship thing. And as one of the people who, I think like a lot of people here, is mixed Sephardi and Ashkenazi. And although I devote 95% of my genealogy time to the Sephardi side, I actually feel guilty about never looking at the Ashkenazi, but I think there are a lot more like us. And I think it would be a pity not to maintain a good, not just maintain and develop a good working relationship with Jewish Gen, if we can, because they have enormous reach. And they've got a lot of people with skills, and they've got a lot of people who are mixed. So that's just a comment. The other thing is, it's three things. One, I was programmed to give 2 talks at the IAJGS conference in the summer, which I didn't give. I managed to record them, and I know that they were presented in my absence because I was ill. But both of them are again, like my research interest, 90% Sephardic. They were about my Sephardic family in Scandinavia and my links to Sephardic ancestors in Portuguese India. And both of them were doing what you asked for the IAJGS, David, which is they started in London, then went on a tour to the various parts of the world and returned to London because I was trying to do 3 things. One was to tell a family story. 2 was to bring in some possibly little known important Sephardic history. And 3 was to throw in resources that I'd found along the way for genealogy research, which I don't think people probably are generally using, and I know more have come along. So I would be happy to redo either or both of those at some point in the future. And also, I'm in southern Denmark at the moment. I am hoping I'm here for 3 weeks. I'm hoping to get to Rendsburg, which is about an hour and 20 minutes away, and has the second oldest Jewish museum in Germany. And it was one of the 4 cities set up or enlarged or promoted by King Christian IV or his son, King Frederick III of Denmark, to attract Sephardic Jews, among other things.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping to get a chance to view at least the museum in Rendsburg and the cemetery in Glückstadt, which was the first of the cities that those Jews went to. The other one people will know better, and it's better documented, and that is Altona. So I'm not going to even touch on that, but I'm hoping that I will have enough material to do a talk with completely, I won't say new material because it'll be old, but new to us or newly discovered at some point in the future.
No, thank you. I think we have to be careful, given our relationship with the IAJGS is not perfect, to not basically repeat a talk that they've had, because they probably feel that they have ownership. I don't know if you remember those things we had to sign at the beginning. We had to more or less sign away our souls to
As far as I am concerned, they broke the contract. So I have no contractual relationship with them. If you think that they might sue you, it's not going to be the same talks anyway.
Well, they're not going to sue us.
These will be, Sephardic world talks, but tailor-made, because they won't follow the format that I would have given for the IAJGS. But it's the content and the subjects which I think it's a pity not to be sharing.
Okay, no, thank you for that. On YouTube, Myra, thank you for your messages. If you can send a message to the email that we use for sending out the weekly messages, we can Ton and I can both see that message and get back to you on that. Anything else, Tom, or shall we?
No. It's
Okay, I think yeah, I think if we're going to nominate a Hero of the Year, I think it's David Silvera for his work in this Transcribus project, because without him it wouldn't even have started, and now it's really quite good. And Ali can get the bridesmaid prize for that, and let's not sort of denounce anybody, even though we do now have some lawyers in the group. Let's just be.
yeah.
You haven't allowed me, but I'm going to speak anyway.
Oh,
because I got to say that doing what we're doing would be impossible without Ton and his understanding of the paleography and similar scripts in Amsterdam, and more recently, of course, with Bernard joining us to do the transcriptions. Two things I mentioned there. Well, first of all, today I got my first bit of success with Jewish Gen. I've got a post to the Jewish Gen discussion group, which you'll find by tomorrow. You'll see it out there. A short post explaining what we're doing and giving people who think they might find their ancestors in that area a chance to go and search and how to go about it and where to go and so on. Also, we should mention that I did a quick search on Lusada, and in the 500 pages we have there are at least 32 pages with references to Lusada, and I'm sure there are more if we spell it the different ways we know it's spelled. So you can go absolutely crazy with searches on there.
And there's the Baruchs, who are the Barrows.
Right. So just in those we've published the first 5 years. There's 500 pages of accounts out there. So it's a major accomplishment in time. The time taken to transcribe is one thing, but the correcting with team meetings, we meet twice a week for an hour and a half each time, and sometimes we can get through 2 pages in an hour and a half. Sometimes we don't. So it's laboriously, and then retraining, because we've retrained the model at least 6 times. As you go down a page, because the account records were written by different people each week, many times they changed 5-6 times on a page, and that meant you had to retrain the model to recognize that people they spelled differently, they wrote differently, and they use different words. So it's fascinating at the same time as difficult. So we're doing it because it's really difficult to do. Put it that way. So that on the that's the first input that I have to the Jewish Gen, and certainly would like a contact there to work with getting the area that we're working in, at least a line item somewhere on their pages. There's nothing in there for the archives at all. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, we know Avraham Grohl, and also, of course, our friend Michael Was is now working there on, or volunteering there on Sephardic projects, so we can give you his email as well if you like. But yeah, so just greetings to Nardo, who's in Israel, and if it's a Nardo who we know, we're hoping that you'll speak on the Venetian archives in this coming year. I think that's a lot. I'm not quite sure when we'll be back. Obviously, some points in the new year.
We will be back on the 7th of January.
Okay. So then we wish all of our Christian members a very Merry Christmas, and anyone else, of course, who celebrates. And we wish everybody a happy, peaceful, and prosperous new year. And probably this coming year will be the year when we need to start being a little bit less amateur than we have been. Although hopefully we can still ensure that it's fun, because I think fun is an important element of what we're doing. And so what I didn't say is that the meeting that we had at the conference, both Tom and I just left with a sort of springs in our steps, because it was just so nice to get to the point where we're actually physically meeting people and developing relationships and making friends over our rather obscure hobby. And yeah, it's that and meetings like this that make it all worthwhile, I think.
Right. As always, we thank our patrons who are with us here, and we thank our viewers on YouTube. We hope to see you in the new year on the 7th of January. And we will continue with a meeting every 2 weeks. And also for me, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. See you in the next year.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
Merry thing.